A pastor in Winston-Salem, North Carolina is accusing Elevation Church of sheep stealing. They're using a tactic called geofencing, which according to this pastor lets Elevation Church target people that actually go to his church with ads. Is this okay to do, and does it even work that way? Well, let's talk about it. Well, hey guys, I'm Thomas here from ReachRight. We put out new content like this around church marketing every single week, and we felt this was a pretty good conversation for us to jump in on and maybe give our opinion, because it's right at the intersection of digital church marketing and ethics. And to be really frank with you, I was floored when I read this account. A pastor out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina has made an accusation that Elevation Church is practicing geofencing around other local churches in the Winston-Salem area. Now, for those of you that don't know, geofencing is the practice of targeting a very specific area and showing your ads to only those people. So the accusation being made is that Elevation Church pinpointed individual churches in the Winston-Salem area, and they asked online marketing platforms to show their ads to only people that are right around those churches in that area. The way it's presented is that it would be targeting specifically people that walk in the doors of that church.
For example, if you owned a tire store over here, and you had a competition with a tire store across town, you would geofence their location, so everybody walking in their place looking for tires would start getting ads from your tire place over here. She said, it's a built-in tithing base. So I said, help me understand something. You're telling me that you are literally advertising in other people's churches so you can take their members and not reach the lost.
The pastor actually followed up with one of the local campus pastors there at Elevation Church, and he got some feedback from the corporate offices where, according to him, they confirmed that while they're not targeting individual churches by name, they are using geofencing to target each individual church in that area and try to show their ads to people that go to those churches. And when I first read this accusation, it really floored me. The idea that a church would target members of other churches in their area that are preaching the same gospel, it really goes against everything we believe as Christians. The insinuation of the local pastor is that Elevation knows that the best target for them are existing Christians because you have an established tithe base, and in a lot of ways that kind of makes sense, but it couldn't be further from what we're called to do as Christians. As someone that runs a marketing company specifically designed to help churches reach more people and grow, we would never do something like this where you target other Bible-believing churches that are preaching essentially the same message in order just to grow yours. Transfer growth is the opposite of what we're looking for. But I wanted to take a second to unpack the accusation a little bit more. Is this true? Is this how geofencing works? And can churches actually do something like this? Well, like everything in digital marketing, it's a little bit more complex than maybe people think that it is. With most of the main platforms, and I'm talking specifically about the most widely used ones of Google Ads and Meta, which is responsible for both Facebook and Instagram, you can target people in a very specific radius. But the targeting isn't quite as precise as maybe you might think that it is. On these two platforms in particular, which make up the lion's share of all digital marketing out there, you cannot pinpoint only people that go into certain buildings in your area. I've even heard of specific businesses wanting to target specific aisles in Walmart because they know if someone is shopping for these kinds of products, then maybe their products would be a good fit for them as well. It doesn't really work that way, at least with the two largest platforms. On Meta, which again is responsible for both Facebook and Instagram ads, you can only target a radius down to 1 mile. So while I suppose in theory, if you were in a very rural area and there wasn't a lot of other activity happening in there, perhaps a 1 mile radius might let you target people that enter an area for a church, but who's to say they're not just driving by? With Google Ads, it's a little bit tighter. You can get that radius down to 1 kilometer, but in any urban or suburban area, the idea that you can target just people within a building or within a parking lot of a church, it really doesn't work that way on the two primary platforms that people use. But in reality, I think every church should be using some form of geofencing. We are in most cases a local expression of the Church of Jesus Christ, and so we should be fencing in our advertising and not reaching reaching the entire world with it, and our investment is best used in a local context. So almost every church we work with will have some kind of a radius for where they want to be showing their ads. Usually it's something between 5 and 10 miles away from the church building, because in most cases, people aren't willing to drive 50 miles to go to church unless they're in extremely rural parts of the country. This is geofencing. When you tell Facebook or Google Ads that you only want to show your ads to people in a certain area, that's setting a fence around the people that you want to reach, and it is a best practice for most churches. Now, to get a little bit more granular, there are some times where it might make sense to have a very tight window around where you want to show your ads. In urban areas like New York City, for instance, you probably want to have a very tight window on who sees your ads, because most people aren't willing to go to church in Brooklyn if they live in the Bronx. And so a 1 mile radius makes sense in a very dense area like New York City. But even in a more suburban context, perhaps it might make sense for you to do ads around a specific school. Maybe there's 2 local high schools and you have some really great youth programs at your church. Well, maybe it makes sense to draw a radius around each of those high schools and target ads specifically at them. The way this works best is if you have a landing page on your site and the ads send people from Facebook to that landing page, which highlights all of the things that your church does for young people. And there is a case maybe to be made for targeting other religious institutions. I've heard of churches maybe setting targets around Mormon churches and maybe having landing pages and ads dedicated to maybe Mormons that are questioning their faith, and having some Mormon apologetics that people would encounter if they click on an ad after being in their area of a Mormon church. These kinds of things can work, but again, it's not as precise as you think it is. Think about your local Mormon temple or maybe Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. If you were to make a mile radius around that building, you'd probably be targeting all kinds of other businesses and homes, and getting that precise is really hard to do. Now, are there some other platforms that maybe allow people to do more precise targeting in tighter areas? Yeah, they do exist out there, but I gotta tell you that the ad space available and the visibility of those ads are nowhere near the reach of things like Google Ads and Meta's platform. The thought that it would actually move the needle, I think, are pretty slim, and to be really frank, I would be surprised if Elevation Church was actually doing something that to me is so blatantly nefarious. So in the end, I have no inside information on whether this was actually taking place at Elevation Church. It seems very nefarious if they were to do something that was that precise of targeting only people inside the building of a local church, but that's not something I can comment on one way or the other. What I can say that as a digital marketer for churches, our hope is to reach the lost. And if your church wants to do a better job reaching the lost, we actually have a video that we just released that will show you the exact right way to do church marketing that isn't stealing members from other churches. Check it out.